now?
I'm not sure. Yes, probably why it's not appear.
Oh, yeah, I can see you recording now.
Yeah.
So, Annie, do you have a specific research hypothesis that you want to test in the survey? Or is it more descriptive?
Descriptive.
Yeah.
Descriptive, because we just know we just want to know their perceptions, their opinion, knowledge, and confidence about the pharmacist intervention, something like that. So you don't think that I need to calculate the power?
I don't think so.
Oh,
no.
okay.
I think you probably need to focus more on how to get a good response rate in the countries of interest, because you're doing it internationally. And I know that tuberculosis incidence varies widely across the world. It's low in Australia, it's high in Southeast Asia, and so how are you going to make sure that you get the survey response? I'm assuming you're particularly interested in countries where incidence is high, for example.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, I also asked my supervisor, and they gave me like kind of choice that probably I can ask to specific high burden country, like my country, Indonesia, one of the other country like India, China. So I specifically mentioned about that, but I also give like choices for the respondent to choose where their country are.
Yeah. So you're not going to restrict it to specific countries like Indonesia, India. You're going to go across the entire world.
Oh, okay. So I should put, what is your suggestion? Probably,
well,
I put it here for statistic analysis. Should I just erase it? Because
well, I think you need to define the scope first. So I don't know whether you've heard of the website Our World in Data, but there's Our World in Data does a lot of good like statistical mapping of things like this. So can I share my screen for a moment? I'll just I'll show you what I found. If I go back to here. So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So this is what Our World in Data showed me for tuberculosis incidence. So you can see, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, India, all through South Asia, all through Southern and Central Africa, a little bit Bolivia and Peru. So, if you want to cover all of those countries, I don't know, that sounds pretty broad scope. Do you want to cover that? Because I imagine you're going to have to put the survey out in different languages.
Yeah, no.
English, Bahasa, so whether you can do that or not, I don't know, it's up to you. But I think initially, you'd want to focus on whether you want to cover all of those countries, because you look at Australia, US, Europe, it's very little incidence of TB. So are you interested in what's going on there or not? Like, I don't know.
Think about this. So what we discussed, Jim, is that our university has good collaborations with India, Vietnam, and Indonesia. So in our opinion, it made sense to do this exploratory survey with those countries, see what pops up, to inform her next study following this. And then we tailor it to either one of these countries or all countries, and be a more a real life approach, a prospective or something retrospective to gather more detailed data on what's happening with those patients with dual infections.
So maybe restricted.
Not aiming to do the whole world.
No. I think it makes sense, doesn't it, to try and restrict it to a certain subset of countries, and then you know what languages you're going to send it out in, and so on. I think that makes sense.
It's only I specifically mentioned in my form that I only use English.
Okay.
I know some restriction in some of the country, like my country, but still, I mean, we're targeting physician and pharmacists, so I expect them to understand English, simple English, because I try to use, yes, not.
I guess that's something to consider in terms of possibly biasing the response.
Yeah, I mean, if we are sampling the patient, probably I need to use local language, but this is health professional. So
the survey is not that long, so you could consider putting it in both languages in RedCap. You can just say, which country are you? And they say, oh, I'm from Indonesia. And say, which language do you prefer, English or Bahasa? And then some branches.
I think you get a better response. Well, I don't know, but I imagine that, potentially you would bias the sample towards the better educated, the more able pharmacists who have better English language skills, and you might miss out on pharmacists who don't have the strong English language skills.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And what you can do, because you can write it in your own language, and you can ask Shagun to do it for India and T to do it for Vietnam. Chinese always find someone for China. That's not an issue. That's too many years, so we can find someone who's happy to translate for you.
Yeah.
Britain, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
So the other thing, in terms of getting good response is, we're bombarded with requests for surveys and feedback every day. So how do you make it important for the respondent? What's in it for them? So there has to be something in the survey that catches their attention and says, well, this is an important issue for you and your clients and so on in society. And this survey is somehow going to help you and the treatment of TB with RVC and so on. And that, if you can really get some sort of motivation in the first part of the survey, that's really useful to improve survey response.
It's not enough if I put just what is the main reason I did this. It's not enough.
Well,
it's some kind of like reward.
You got to talk it up. You got to talk it up a little bit. Often if it's a commercial survey, then they'll offer a gift card or something. You get $100 gift card at Bunnings or something. But you probably can't make that offer. So you can't use that sort of incentive, monetary incentive. But if you can appeal to their professional interests and their desire to address this specific problem, that will help with the survey response, I think.
Hopefully like that, because I mean, if my country, I just know about my country quite a lot, but I mean, in basically like pharmacists, if pharmacist association asks to the member to fill the survey, the researcher need to like having collaboration with that organization and pay something like a payment for credit point, because if someone, the member fill the survey, it means that they have additional credit point for certificate. Yeah, CPD point. Yeah, something like that. So it's also another option.
Yeah.
Right? But it's also, I know it's applied in my country, but I asked also my colleagues, is it possible for free? I mean, I didn't apply that kind of credit point. And he said, yes, it's possible, probably, but you will only get not too much response rather than you have like offering them that credit point. I said, okay, I will consider about that. So, I mean, it's also true, like you mentioned, that probably I will only have like low.
That's right. Yeah. So it's something to
I
think
don't know
about.
with the other countries, it's also like that, or
yeah.
Well, if there's an incentive, likely response rate will be higher. But the question is, are they responding because they just want the incentive, or are they really providing you with the actual answers that you're after?
Quality versus quantity.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, there's no correct answer, is there? It's something that for your judgment.
Okay, but yes, that's the thing that we need to consider. And it's also mentioned in workshop design survey.
Because the other thing is to make the survey not too long, no longer than it absolutely has to be to answer your research questions.
10 minutes, right?
Yeah, maximum. Yeah, and also that you can do it on your smartphone while you're in the bus to make it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So use a tool that's easy for users to get in and out of and fill it in, and tell them up front, you know, what the expected completion time should be and so on. Make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah, I put in my form, I plan to use RedCap, and I also heard from the workshop that it's possible to design the RedCap question for mobile application, although we need special permission for that, but I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. All those things help, don't they?
Yeah, and there's also another Qualtrics, but for this kind of survey, it's said that RedCap is because it's multi-country, not only Australia. So it's right. Well, it's suitable to use RedCap rather than Qualtrics. That's what I found.
Yes. Yeah. Have you spoken to the people in research data consulting at all, Annie?
No, not yet.
So have you been to any of the RedCap webinars that they run?
Oh, yeah. I went to a workshop for introduction of
Intro to RedCap.
Yeah.
So you would have seen Cameron Fong in that webinar.
Exactly.
So you can email him and you ask him any questions, you know, if you want to know whether you can use Qualtrics or whether it has to be RedCap. But you know, RedCap is great. It's the most functional, most versatile tool. Qualtrics, you know, in some ways is maybe a little bit easier to use, but yeah, if you can't use it multi-country, then you have to use RedCap.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's not possible to multi-country, but I mean, if it's a specific country, it's quite something. There's a barrier. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I don't know whether there's a licensing.
Acceptable, yes, more applicable to broader.
Has of course some barriers with some software packages.
Okay. Yes.
So I don't know, but it's good to explore.
And are you designing the whole survey yourself, or are you using any existing survey instruments?
Took some of the question from existing instrument, but I of course I made some modification because we have different aim. But I mean, it's also, that's my next question, because I heard that we need to make like focus group to to pilot.
Pilot the survey.
Pilot the survey.
Yes.
And we need to perform Cronbach value coefficient something analysis.
Cronbach's alpha.
Yeah, that's it.
So you might want to do that, particularly if you're asking questions that relate to some sort of underlying construct, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, I targeting Indonesia and Asian country that also have like culture that we have like tend to say, if we say no, it's impolite. So you understand what I mean? But we tend to say that, well, not saying no at all, because we think that it's impolite. So probably it affect the result, because
there's going to be a cultural bias. So one culture will tend to rate something higher in agreement than another culture. So there's that agreeability sort of personality trait that might, you know, be particular to a specific cultures that influences scores. So that's very important to sort of consider And I guess, you need to use all of the expert knowledge you have about those cultures to make sure that those cultural aspects are adequately managed, either in the question writing or in the analysis.
How much adequate is, I mean, for the pilot study, how much statistically meaningful that it's not biased or something?
Yeah,
for
well,
the
it's only a pilot, so you might want to get 5 or 10 responses from each country, say, something like that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have to be a lot. You just want to see whether people are answering the questions the way you thought, or whether they're misunderstanding it. Maybe they don't understand a particular thing, and everybody's rating it, don't know or something, and you go, oh, people don't understand this question, so you need to rewrite it, and give people an opportunity to write their comments about the survey and what they understood, what they didn't understand, and so on.
Oh, for the pilot. Because
for the pilot. And if you can get, that qualitative, direct response from the pilot respondents, then that's really useful too. Ask them individually, what did you think? How did it work for you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, is it possible also? I will try to find out how to perform that Cronbach alpha analysis, but if I have difficulty,
what are the underlying sort of dimensions or constructs that you might be interested in? So say, for example, if you're surveying people for depression and anxiety, you might have four questions that sort of ask about depression and 4 questions that ask about anxiety, and then you'll put those 4 questions together for depression, and you'll see, using Cronbach's alpha, whether they're all measuring the same underlying construct of depression. And the other 4 for anxiety, are they all sort of measuring the same underlying construct of anxiety? That's where the Cronbach's alpha comes in, when you want those questions to all go together to be asking about something, not directly, but sort of indirectly. Because you can't ask a person, are you depressed? Give me a score out, well, you can, but you need to do more than that for something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that I have that kind of question, but
no, I'm not sure whether you do. Yeah,
I will show you my questions, but because it's also related to my next question. Because it's about statistics. I have so many. I already took biostatistics, but I need to admit that it's introductory. I don't know every method that mentioned in the journal I read so far. That's why I need to ask. Sorry, I will say thank you. I put it again. I made a mistake. I think I just share my screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, in my statistic, in my ethic form, I just put this one. So I think is it possible that I erase this, because we don't need to have like specific power analysis, right? And for the statistic,
well, that's first. The first couple of sentences are about a different surveys, are they? Not your survey.
Well, this is just, I put this because I took examples that I think it's related to my survey. So.
Okay.
But if we, based on your suggestion before, that I think it is related to knowledge, so I don't need specific.
I don't, probably not.
Size.
I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't think you'd need to put that in there at this point.
Yeah, because I tried to find how much physician, how much pharmacists globally. It's a lot. And even for having 7.1%, it's still a lot.
It's probably, probably struggled to get that much. like the whole of Indonesia, you know, that would be a lot of pharmacists, wouldn't it?
In Indonesia, we have pharmacists around 77,000
Yeah, wow.
registered pharmacists, and for pulmonologists is around 1,200.
Yeah,
But
so I agree. Probably 7% would be a good response rate, wouldn't it? But
well, it's based on previous years, hopefully. And for statistic, but this is, I put it all as general because I heard that I use Likert scale. I'm not using continuous variable directly, like how old are you, what is your salary a month. I didn't have that kind of questions, but I heard from the research design that Likert scale also we analyze it using continuous. I'm not sure. Yes, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. I misunderstood what the speaker mean, but
so where you've got categorical variables presented as counts and percentages, you know, that would be suitable for things like male and female respondents. So, you know, you've got 1,000 male respondents, 2,000 female respondents, and you've got the counts, and then your percentages 33%, 63%. And you could do a chi-square test to test whether that was different from an expected number. But in order, for example, for sex, you know, male, female, you would have to know what the expected percentages would be. Are the pharmacists in Indonesia 50% male, 50% female, or are they some other ratio?
I don't have that kind of question.
No. So, you know, so if you could sort of do that statistical test and say, oh, the males and females the same, 50-50, but it doesn't mean anything unless you know, well, what was the correct ratio in the population of interest. So yeah,
it is interesting if you want to talk about how representative your results are. But I think the pharmacy associations in the different countries have that information. They know from the membership who is the boy and who is the girl.
Yeah.
So you could do that statistical test to see whether you have a representative sample in terms of those categorical indicators like sex, potentially, which would be nice. And then the Likert items, you know, they're going to be maybe 5-point scales or 7-point scales or something. And there's different ways of analyzing them.
Yeah, I can show you where my confusion in the slide. May I?
Sure.
I mean, here screen.
Okay.
I thought I share my screen. Sorry for that. This is, I think yes, this one. So this
continuous
is
versus ordinal.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the speaker mentioned that it is good enough if we present the data like this, with the data like not only mention that how much agree, how
yeah, percentage
like
agreement. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's it's commonly used. You know, you might have a 5-point scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. but you just do a dichotomize it and go, well, what's the percentage agree? Or you can do like the stacked bar chart on the right-hand side, which shows the agree or satisfied and the very satisfied.
Yeah.
And not worry about the neutral and the disagrees, because that's sort of implied anyway.
Yes.
You know,
and for
so that's a
doing
nice
this,
descriptive plot.
yeah, but for doing this, it mentioned that I need to use logistic regression. Is that right? Or am I made a mistake? Understand?
Yeah, well, you could, of course, if you want, if the question response is the outcome variable that you're interested in, the dependent variable, and you want to see what other things predict that agreement, then you could use logistic regression. Yeah, well,
I only got like biostatistic introduction and logistic regression. We never heard about that. I can find it in YouTube, but I mean, is that any possibility for using any other, or you can recommend me any other?
Well, you have to start with the question that you want to ask.
I will start.
Are you trying to predict an agreement or a satisfaction level using other factors? So are you trying to predict whether they will, agree with a certain treatment based on their sex and their age, for example? So if you wanted to do that, then you might use some logistic regression to say, age, as age increases, this treatment agreement or usage decreases, or something like that. So do you want to model those relationships between variables?
I think that the more experienced pharmacists feel more confident in providing advice. That could come from your data if you use that input from several questions to relate it to that single question regarding their lunch. So I think, yes, it will be relevant for your study.
But before you get to logistic regression, you might be able to just do chi-square tests for simple associations between two variables. So if you've got pharmacy level of experience in a few categories, like low experience, medium experience, high experience, and then the outcome variable, yes or no, or agree or not agree, then you could use chi-square test. You don't have to go all the way to the more advanced logistic regression in that case. So I wouldn't leap towards logistic regression in the first instance.
Is it so complicated, logistic regression? Because I didn't find any workshop about logistic regression in Learning Hub, and I didn't find it also in my material when I took the course of statistics.
Right.
That's why I quite worried.
Are you familiar with linear regression?
Yeah.
Annie? Yes.
Yeah.
So
not familiar enough, but I know.
You've got a continuous outcome, whatever it might be, and then you've got predictors that might be continuous predictors like age or something, and perhaps some categorical like sex, and you use those to predict a continuous outcome. Logistic regression, you've still got the same predictors, might be level of experience, age, and so on, that predict a binary outcome, which might be a yes or no.
I quite confident, but for logistic, this is the
So I wouldn't get too concerned about that at this point in time. I'd be more thinking about making sure that the research questions are clear, and that the questions that you write in the survey are addressing properly the research questions. Make sure that's a very clear link. And then, as long as you've got the survey questions set up right with nice Likert scales with their 5-point or 7-point, then you can do we can talk about the analysis later.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So get all that first part done, sorted out, the relationship between the research question and the survey question. And as long as you've got it all going into REDCap in a tidy way, then the analysis shouldn't be shouldn't be an insurmountable challenge. You know, the data will all be in the right form to answer the research questions, with whether it's linear regression or logistic regression or just chi-square tests, or, you know. But I think the major part of it will be descriptive statistics, like the plot you were showing me with the, you know, the bar graph showing the level of agreement.
Yeah.
That will be the major
Actually
part.
show that for the different countries.
Yeah.
But then after I get the data. But I think for that ethics application, I just put something that I showed you previously. It's with all the Whitney use and linear regression and logistic regression and t-test, put everything there. Is it all right? I mean,
it's, you know, it's pretty much, I would describe it as a boilerplate analysis plan. You know, it's just sort of, it's pretty stock standard phrasing that you can use. You could probably get ChatGPT to write it for you.
Okay.
I wouldn't get too concerned about making that look too fancy, because it's more about the descriptive statistics, unless you have an a priori hypothesis about saying country A is going to be different from country B, and I'm going to test that using a statistical test, then it should be straightforward.
Hypothesis for ethics, right? So specific.
If you don't have one, and you don't put it in.
Yeah.
Objectives.
It's exploratory. It's just, you can say it's an exploratory data analysis, and you'll mainly use descriptive statistics.
Then they're happy with that.
Hopefully.
The problem is if when there's a disconnect between what you want and what you plan to do with your statistics. If you say, oh, I'm going to explore, but I use the most fancy statistical test to see if there's a difference, then they say, oh, there's a clear disconnect between what you're trying to do and how you're going to analyze your data. So if you say we're exploring, then use descriptives. Yeah.
And just for your question, I thought I thought it was a little bit long, but I'm not sure what others think, because each of this is the question, right? Even each of this is question. Yeah.
It's total questions. It's 48.
If you just scroll 48.
Yeah.
Is it totally?
Actually, it's the total number
each dot point is your question, right?
Yeah, it's 48.
48 questions.
Yeah, including the demographic. I mean,
so yeah, you might want to check that it's the survey is as short as it needs to be, and no longer than it needs to be.
48, it's like this. Like this is I count as one.
Rating, each like that.
So you have to test how much time it takes, and not yourself, but ask someone else to complete it.
So those item scales are unipolar, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they're not bipolar from strongly disagree to strongly agree. They're looking at how often you do something from never up to always.
This is also.
So it's good to work out what type of questions you're going to ask. Are you going to ask these types of unipolar questions, or are you asking questions about agree, disagree, or satisfied, dissatisfied?
Yeah, there's some
sort of thing.
Yeah, there's some with that for agree and disagree, but
I
mean,
still like
it. It's all Likert 5.
It's meant to be Likert. Some people say like it.
Likert.
And keep the scales nice and short. So 5-point is good. You know, some people use 7-point or even 9-point, but 5-point is generally sufficient, I would think. You know, the more points in the scale, the harder it is for people to choose the correct response, and you just ends up getting noisier. The data gets noisier. So 5-point is good.
Yeah, but it's also mentioned why I put that sometimes, and where I highlight it, because I heard in the workshop that it should be, I should say something like distinguish between every category. Like people will get confused what the meaning of this sometimes and rarely, for example. So, but for 5 scale, normally they use this kind of
yeah,
but
it is important
in
to
the
consider.
research workshop, not the research workshop, design workshop, it said that this is probably confusing because rarely, sometimes, often, yes, of course, it's quite different, but sometimes and rarely.
I think if you put them on a Likert scale, that people will feel what the difference is. Because if you ask them independently what is rarely, what is sometimes, it may be difficult. But now you can see that they're in a specific order, right? So you have never and then rarely. So rarely is less frequent than sometimes. So
I think
yeah.
Sorry, Johannes. I was going to say, I think Chris in that survey design workshop talks about saying, well, if you're going to use a scale like this, make sometimes add some extra words to say about 5 out of 10 times, and often might be about 7 or 8 out of 10 times. So that's very clear, because sometimes for some people might mean like once or twice out of 10, and for other people they might think that means 6 out of 10 times. So that's the point I think Chris was making, where you can guide people to a more specific quantitative measure rather than just use these terms that may be interpreted differently, particularly across different cultures. You know, sometimes might mean something different in Vietnam culture versus Indonesian culture. I don't know. Yeah. But if you use 5 times out of 10, that's clearer.
So never, it means that 0 to 10%.
0 out of 10.
30. Okay.
Always is 10 out of 10 times.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's for the first part, because after that I need to put it in I need to get the data, and I ask again how analysis I could get. I should propose.
At the moment, you have different like domains you want to assess, like knowledge, attitude, and you've got like multiple aspects. And I know analysis we worry about later, but then I think we still need to think how we are going to. There's no point in asking all these questions and then later, now like I think, you know, like we kind of think have to kind of have a plan, at least like per domain assessment we are looking at. How are we going to make sense of this?
Actually, it's also in my consideration. I mean, I confused because in the end I want to know like how important pharmacist intervention in pharmacist perspective and in physician perspective is how much who agree and like pharmacists agree for pharmacist intervention in TB patient, how many % they agree, something like that. But I cannot, I mean, how can I assume with this kind of questions for that specific
so I think that's why we need to like form a research question we want to get answer for, like a few like objective questions, like objectives from this survey. And then design the questions around the objectives. Then you can get targeted answers, and later on you can analyze by the objective.
Yeah, that's why I put the objective.
Who the participant is, you make them say that they are pharmacists or a clinician, so you know that, and then you can look at the response for that category specifically and compare those between categories.
Yeah,
but I don't need to conclude from all that.
Ideally, you use the information from all your questions. Otherwise, you can delete the question if you're not going to use the information. And then
that's right. Because I think it's very, very common to just put a whole lot of questions down because you're getting everything out of your head, you know, what you're thinking about. But as Hannah was saying, it needs to be needs to be reviewed and culled down to, well, am I answering the research question? Are these questions answering what I want to know?
Yeah.
So yeah, try and fine tune it right down to the minimum set of questions that will answer the research question. And that will help survey response, because, you know, if you can make it as short as possible, people will get to the end of the survey and go, oh, great, I finished it in 4 minutes, you know. Whereas if it's too long, people will drop off and you won't get complete responses.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I participated in long survey, and then I think towards the end you go, oh, I'm not sure. I just like maybe something in the middle. I don't want to bias the survey, and then you end up really okay. I don't really know the answer. I just like, you know,
Put everything in the middle.
yeah, you tend to do that. Like, to be honest.
Yeah.
You need to keep the cognitive demand as low as possible while still getting the information you want. So it's a real, you know, it's a real sort of art and science. It's a skill, you know, so it's good to talk to other people about it before you launch the survey, because it's not just writing questions. There's a real art to it.
Yeah, I know. And particularly after performing the survey, my friend experienced when she tried to analyze the data, and then it said that it's not applicable because it's not accurate. I'm not sure. That's why she said I need to redo the survey. And I said, what? One of my friends have experienced that. That's why I said, oh.
Yeah. So it's good to read some other validated survey instruments and just see how they're written. You know, there's a lot in REDCap, and you can probably find others on the internet. Like, I think REDCap has something like nearly 3,000 survey instruments in there, like preloaded. You know, you can have a look at how they set out their questions.
Oh, okay. I mean, you mean the template in their templates, or
in REDCap? Yeah, you can choose survey instruments that are already in there that other people have used.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know, like the DAS 21 for depression, anxiety, stress, and quality of life, and, you know, all of these different things are all in REDCap, and you can have a look and go, oh, how did they set out? How many questions are there? How are they set out? And, you know, sort of learn from those really big common survey questions, survey instruments.
Okay, thank you for your suggestions. Is there anything else?
I was also going to say, have you got any idea what statistical software you're going to use?
I only know Jamovi.
Jamovi, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can probably do it all with Jamovi.
Although I put in my form SPSS because all the article put SPSS.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
I saw any article put Jamovi.
Isn't it like traditional like software? I don't know.
My teacher, my professor said Jamovi, it's free software, so it should be good for a researcher to use if we're not having like
have the SPSS support at the University of Sydney?
Yeah, but they don't teach us during the course, so I don't know how to use SPSS. But that's why I put it still, because I can learn from YouTube after that.
SPSS is the most common, you know. So I would probably recommend that first up. But, you know, if you're really happy with Jamovi, you could do it with Jamovi. It's up to you.
It's also reliable, right?
Well, Jamovi is sort of getting a little bit more traction now. There's more people using it. I think more academics are teaching their classes with Jamovi.
Yeah, they said it's easier. I'm not sure because I never experienced SPSS, but I just accept that it will be easier.
What you know is always easier than what you don't know.
Okay, that's true.
But SPSS, you can learn SPSS. It's not super hard, honestly. It's not like trying to do all the coding in R or Python or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So there'll probably be more information, more resources online for SPSS than Jamovi. So that's one thing to consider. Have you ever used LinkedIn Learning?
I just heard it now. No.
Yeah, so LinkedIn, you know, there's LinkedIn. Well, there's also a thing called LinkedIn Learning, which used to be called.
I know LinkedIn, but I don't know LinkedIn
So
Learning.
through your Sydney University account, you can get access to all of the LinkedIn Learning courses, which include a lot of SPSS courses. And that's a really nice, well-structured environment for learning things like SPSS.
Okay.
So I recommend that. I'll give you a link. I'll put a link in the chat. I'll show you.
Yeah, because it's 1 hour. Sorry.
How we go? We've got a few minutes. Let me see. I'll just share my screen again for a moment. You can see my screen now, yeah? Yeah, so these are some of the LinkedIn Learning courses, like this one. This one's a good one.
That's suitable for surfing? Essential.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it covers, you know, all the basics, how to use SPSS, how to import the data and so on. And yeah, doing your tables, descriptive statistics, and doing all your plotting. You don't need to worry about that. Comparing proportions. So it's nice. It's a really nice environment for learning SPSS.
Nicer than YouTube.
Much nicer than YouTube.
Okay.
So I can share that. I can share that in the chat. And yeah, LinkedIn Learning, there's heaps of stuff in there. Like there's stuff about how to learn ChatGPT and, you know, all of the up-to-date things that people are interested in. Yeah, so I highly recommend that if you were going to take the plunge and use SPSS.
I will. I need it. Yeah, thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good to have a plan for how you're going to do it. And REDCap does, you know, integrate really well with SPSS. I don't know how well it would integrate with Jamovi because you know, when you export all the data from REDCap, you want all the value labels to come across with the variable names and the values of the responses. So SPSS does work really neatly with REDCap for that purpose.
Okay.
Yeah,
So definitely I use SPSS. I should use SPSS because I never heard the REDCap administrator mention about Jamovi.
No.
Always mention SPSS and Excel.
Yeah. So REDCap direct into SPSS and yeah, you'll be fine. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's almost 1 hour. I took your time too much. Thank you very much for
no, you're very welcome. Yeah, and if you've got, you know, any issues later on in the project, you know, you're most welcome to put in another request to SIH at any time, you know, so whether it's in 6 months or 2 years, whenever, you know, please put in another request. How long do you think it will take, Annie?
I planned this is only a couple of months because this is preliminary data for my thesis subject.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We might see you before Christmas. Yeah.
Jim, question from me. To what extent are you keen to be involved in the manuscript coming from the project?
Yeah, we don't seek co-authorships. So, but we do really appreciate acknowledgements of the SIH service. And if you go to the SIH webpage where you would have put in the request, scroll down the bottom, there is a form of words for acknowledgement. And we do scrape the web looking for acknowledgements so that, you know, we can prove to the managers that we're doing our job. So we do appreciate those acknowledgements.
But just if you look at authorship criteria, you contributed now to the design. If you check with Annie on anything that she does, then you contribute to analysis. And if you read the final manuscript, then you comply with all the authorship criteria. Yeah,
it's a bit of a grey zone, isn't it? Yeah, like because we're all professional staff rather than academic staff. So we don't have that same imperative for authorship. And generally we say, if we are going to, if it's a paid arrangement where we do the analysis for the client, for the researcher, then yes, we would want a co-authorship because we're doing analysis. But yeah, I guess the line is drawn there. If we're just providing advice about the study design and we might have a review of the draft manuscript or discuss comments from reviewers, then we wouldn't request co-authorship for that. So that's the policy. That's not my policy. That's just the SIH policy for us.
Perhaps they don't want you to be distracted by reviewing manuscript by all the foreign language or something. So you can't take on more questions. Maybe. Anyway, just didn't want to deny you any co-authorship up front.
No, absolutely. No, thank you for asking. And people do offer us co-authorships, and sometimes we have to say no, even though, you know, it would be great to get involved in that. But as you say, it could be distracting for us as professional staff to go down that road of seeking those authorships.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you all, and good luck, Annie.
Thank you, Jim. I really need a lot of luck.
Yeah, sounds like a great project.
I can start my study, and certainly I need luck.
All right, have a good day.
Jim. I really appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
And your effort.